Hey, um, it's been a little while, a couple weeks since I last did an update video. I was planning on doing more update videos on Holy Havoc, which is the team tournament I'm going to, before now, but my schedule was rather full and I needed to work on models instead. That's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm actually on the way to Holy Havoc. I'm in South Dakota right now, and I've split my trip. So it's it's ended up quite an expensive trip because an extra couple hotel stops, and I'm also renting a car. So, but I think it'll be worth it, and we'll have some fun here. So, yeah, basically, I got back from Ohio, which was really kind of a fun trip, and I don't know what the prospects for that job really are. But when I got back, my sister-in-law visited as well. Not a good time to get some hobbying done. We're in a small apartment. There's a couple extra dogs running around, and our little new puppy that we just got during the summer. It's actually her two brothers, and so they were just the house was a mess. Let me tell you. Anyway, so once that cleared out, I got my room back, and I kind of converted it into kind of a hobby room, makeshift. Nothing on the walls, no books out or anything, but just bunch of tables and models out, and just kind of my room where I can just go in and paint. Really needed that space, so that's basically what I've been doing. And I had a few things put together, just like one or two things, though, prior to leaving. So when I got back from Ohio, and after that weekend, this was about under 2 weeks ago now. So last week on Monday and stuff, I started to really put things together, and I decided to go with the bases made by GW, like the sculpted, the sculpted bases that Geek Games Workshop makes. I've talked about using those in the past on this channel. Finally decided to do it. I also needed a few extra things, and so I made a quick order of Mini Stomp, which is who I usually do most of my orders through, and he had them delivered like 2 days, and so I got them. He got them like Tuesday, and I got the box Thursday, that type of thing. So about a week ago, I just had the bases delivered for my army. So then I was spraying frantically with primer just to kind of get them all done up. Couldn't use my airbrush because I didn't know where my airbrush mask was, and I always find that to be a useful tool. So I went with the old rattle can, which ended up being kind of a mistake. We're in an apartment, as I mentioned, and so I'm gonna have to like repaint some of the walls. So kind of a mistake there, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Our puppy's already kind of made a few little nibbles on the corners here and there anyway. So I don't know if we'll get the deposit back anyway, but certainly my efforts to have the models primed didn't really help. But so in either case, I have quite a bit of work to do. I basically painted the whole force in the past week. By like Monday of this week, I was probably painting 12 hours a day and trying to get through. And it's mostly lots of blood letters, which are not necessarily that hard to paint. Which is why I kind of chose the army. So I'm doing Corn Demons, obviously, as I mentioned in the previous video. And one of the reasons I chose the army because it was fairly easy to paint. But I'm trying to do it to a fairly high degree, I think, anyway. I don't know if they'll end up that way, but there's quite a lot of work to do. And, painting 2 big units of 30, plus a Bloodthirster, plus a couple special characters, and then the sideboard. So my army, this is a team tournament, so they're basically, each of us chooses 1,000 points. Mrs. Hooves isn't with me this year, she was last year. So I got teamed up with William Myers. He seems like a really nice guy. We've been chatting every now and then. And he's doing Core and Bloodbound, so we have kind of a coherent theme to the army. But my 1,000 points is 2 units of 30 Bloodletters, a Wrathicorn Bloodthirster, a Bloodsecrator, and then a Warlord model. And there's some war gear and stuff on each of these. But the Warlord's kind of a custom model that you must build for the tournament. One of the things about the tournament is that it's fairly unique in that regard. And there are a number of really interesting special rules for the Warlord. Every game you play has a unique Warlord objective, which is different every single game. And the Warlord must try to achieve that objective. And they vary quite significantly. It's a very interesting tournament because all 5 games you play are completely different. They're all custom scenarios. And I think there are 5 simultaneous objectives every single game, which makes it very difficult. So some are highly movement-based, some are about killing the most monsters, some are about killing the most models. They're really all over the place, and trying to score all 5 is a genuine challenge, depending on what your opponent has, and even the tables. The tables themselves are all, I mean, this is, again, if you looked at my coverage of Holy Havoc last year, most of the scenarios are about the same, almost the same. But the tables themselves are these unique masterpieces. They're a lot of terrain that are all handmade and custom. They have their own rules that are that have a significant impact on the game. They can do a bunch of damage. They can, if the unit's near it, or it can get buffed or debuffed. There's a lot going on just with the tables, and they're absolutely beautiful in their construction. It's really such a hobby-oriented event. That's one of the reasons why I want to make my army as best as I can possibly do it. And then there is a sideboard for the army as well. And in that I have 2 units of Blood Crushers and a Skull King. I have no intention of really using the sideboard in the games. In order to even get a single unit of Blood Crushers into the game, I would have to take out 20 Bloodletters, which just doesn't... it's not a great matchup. It's just not a good trade in that regard. But I do think, for purposes of displaying the army, again, we have to have a display board, that a Bloodthirster and a bunch of Bloodletters doesn't look particularly interesting. And I'm not suggesting that adding a couple Blood Crushers will make it look amazing, but it will certainly add a different type of unit into the mix to kind of break it up a little bit, so it's not just a horde of infantry on the board. And so I'm hopeful I'll get to those, but they're not really a huge priority for painting. As I've been painting the other Bloodletters, I've been also painting the Riders, just because they're the same model, really. But the actual Juggernauts need some work, and they're very, very basic right now. So, man, I was really hoping to not get to this point where I'm doing this at the hotel. That was one of my goals. One of the reasons I was putting so many hours into it, and just didn't work out. I really want the army to look as best as I possibly can make it in the time I have. And between, I think it's a little after 6 right now, 6 p.m. I'll probably paint for the next 6 hours and see what I can do, and then hopefully get to the hotel in Illinois about the same time as today. And I don't know if I'll do too much Friday night. You can register and stuff like that, but I might just try to get another 4 or 5 hours painting in and try to do as much as I can. I don't think everything will be 100% complete, so I'm a little disappointed by that, but I think most of it will. And I'll definitely show you some pictures of the finished product. The lighting in here is pretty terrible. I don't think you'd really be able to see any good detail. But throughout the event, I'll definitely take some photos, and I'll probably do an update of the actual tournament, maybe some of the games. It's a real pleasure to go, not only because of the hobby focus. It's a really good group of people that are attending, and a lot of people are returning this year as well. A good representation of some fairly well-known personalities in the podcast and YouTube, and just on social media in general. There's just, a number of these people I've never met in person, but I know who they are. and other people are returning from last year. Vince and Tom from Warhammer Weekly are going to be there. The crew from the Mortal Realms podcast, Eric and Davey, are there. Several other people from last year as well. So it's really kind of fun. And so we'll see how it goes. I kind of had a rough start this morning. On the way to the car, I fell. That's nice. So I'm all kind of bruised up, but I'm getting older apparently. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. And yeah, like I said, I started work on those bases. Man, I keep talking about bases. I'm obsessed because I hate them so much. But I think these bases look phenomenal. So I'm really happy with them, and especially ones for the for the actual larger models I'll be using. So I really want to make sure I get those painted just to have the bases on the table. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, I got about 6 hours of painting ahead of me. I got to get working on these and try to finish them up to a little bit better scale. Most of the bloodletters just needs a few detail work here and there. But when you're working with 2 units of 30, trying to paint them all at the same time as an assembly line, that's just grueling. And how long I always anticipate it will take is just always wrong. I was thinking, okay, I can do this, and I'll do it in half an hour, and it's like 2 hours later, I'm still working on it. It's like, But anyway, back to it. I'll post some updates and stuff on Twitter and probably a YouTube video or two as well. So stay tuned for those, and it'll be a fun tournament. So anyway, have a good one. Bye. And I just built all my Agrax Earthshade onto the hotel desk. So I'm off to a good start.